It's Geeky Stoics. It's Geeky Stoics Live, something that we've talked about doing for a long time. Hey, welcome to the live stream, the first live stream from Geeky Stoics. I'm Riley. He's Steven. What's going on, man?
Hey man, we're on the up and up. We can now do live streams and there are maybe people to watch. We like that.
Yeah, we definitely did not just completely, and by we I mean me, fail to start the live stream. But listen, that's kind of what we're doing here is working through some of the tech and actually experimenting, because a live stream and doing live, essentially, people used to call these podcasts, but podcasts are lame now. Isn't that what the kids say?
I'm
I don't
tired
know.
of podcasts. I don't need another podcast in my life.
There's too many. But yeah, no, I'm really excited to talk about some of the stuff that we talk about on this channel, the stories we love and how they actually impact our life, but in a more like casual setting. And it's an excuse for us to like virtually hang out every week. So I'm excited, man.
Yeah, let's rock.
Let's do it.
What's new? I mean, Star Wars has been on everybody's mind here. Actually, no,
Yeah.
not many people's mind. Isn't
Has
that
it,
the problem?
Skeleton Crew, more like Skeleton Views. How was that? How to do? Is that get
That
it?
was
It's all
that
right.
was
The
like
dad.
a B or a C level pun.
That's pretty bad. But yeah, no, I did want to talk Skeleton Crew. I just finished the finale like a couple hours before. And and this won't be like a thorough review of the finale. I just kind of wanted your take on some of the stories about this, and quoting this Forbes piece, this article right here, that
Yeah.
it's like the lowest viewed Star Wars series to date.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I think people have heard this take before, but let's just reiterate it. Skeleton Crew is falling victim to the overall decline of the Star Wars brand. I mean, I don't like saying Star Wars is dead, but like it is dead. It's dying. They've lost the goodwill, the interest of
Mm,
audiences, the parents who want to show their kids Star Wars and watch Star Wars with their kids. The last time maybe they tried that, maybe they tried with The Acolyte, and The Acolyte was sort of a casting disaster, a story mismatch, a insult to the Jedi. And by the way, it was also like aggressively violent and weirdly sexual. So even for a Star Wars, like it was a lot. And when you lose the trust of audiences, they actually don't come back. They go and they watch other
mm,
things and do things with their time. We're talking about a Star Wars show that barely got 308 million minutes of watch time, so it doesn't break into the Nielsen ratings for
yeah.
streaming. But I don't know. Does Star Wars need to be in the top 10 Nielsen ratings for it to matter?
Hmm. I mean, that's the question, because as much as I'm already seeing the term Last Jedi effect thrown around for the viewership of like, well, because the Acolyte wasn't what a lot of fandom wanted, therefore this is unsuccessful. I hesitate to draw that parallel. I don't necessarily think that applies as much to the streaming side of things,
Mhm.
but I do think it's fair to say um, it's not connecting. And it's not because it's on Disney Plus, because like the most culturally impactful Star Wars story of the Disney era isn't any of the sequel trilogy. It's Baby Yoda. It's the Mandalorian. Like
Yeah.
in terms of like what the everyman knows, and I think that's the reality that we're facing with Skeleton Crew, because as great as the show was, I really enjoyed it. It has not connected in the way that Star Wars historically has.
Yeah, and with streaming, there's always the off chance of a show catching up. Like word of mouth
Mm,
actually drives a show to end up
yeah,
being culturally relevant. But we're at the finale of Skeleton
yeah,
Crew, which they did it to tie up all the ends of all the characters for a satisfying ending, but they did leave a door open if there was going to be a renewal. But why would there be a renewal when it's the bottom of the heap for Star Wars? I like what you said about The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian I think everybody gets a little bit too hung up on season 3, as if like every season of any show has to be amazing or perfect.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little bit of a misstep with season 3, but still, The Mandalorian is the only culturally relevant Star Wars property that Disney has
Mhm.
ever created, ever. Um, and we see that at Comic Cons. You see that when you
Definitely.
Riley and I go to cons a lot. It's as simple as this: May the Force be with you, and this is the way. This is the way
Yeah.
is bumper sticker worthy. Yesterday, when I was sitting in a coffee shop doing some script writing for our next Geeky Stoics video, 3 times in 1 hour, a car went by a car went by that had Mandalorian stuff on it. This one car went
Mm,
by and it literally had a "This is the way" bumper sticker. A couple of minutes later, somebody went by with a Baby Yoda strapped to the ceiling of their car. And then another couple of minutes later, somebody went by who had a bumper sticker and just like the nest egg for Baby Yoda, like
mhm.
his cradle that he stays in and
Yep,
floats
yep.
around
I
in.
know what you're talking about. I've
And I
seen
was
those, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, this show actually left a thumbprint on the public, and we haven't had that since. We really, really haven't. And
Yeah.
it just bums me out how much they've blown it. That makes me actually sad.
It does. Well, I feel two ways about this. I have this controversial take that Star Wars not being on the top of the heap in terms of pop culture isn't a bad thing, and that's coming as a prequel kid who was really bummed when Revenge of the Sith came out, and there was going to be no more Star Wars, and we were waiting for this like one cartoon show and maybe some comic books, and that's all it was for a few years. Which is to say nothing of the guys we know that survived the dark days of the late 80s and early 90s until the
Mhm.
Thrawn trilogy came out. So not being mainstream does not make it a, a bad thing necessarily. But I do think that there is a reason that I think we're at the point now. We're now what, like 10 years on pretty much. Almost like this year, 2025 will be the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens. God, God, do I feel old?
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. Let me ask you a question real quick though. What's your
Yeah.
take, Jod in Skeleton Crew, played by Jude Law? Was he a Jedi? Like, what was your overall take on that?
Yeah, I think. Well, what the finale did a good job, and I will say this about Jod Nana Wood, which I think that that will be the only time that I say Jod Na Wood because I think
Nanawood.
I it's worst name ever. I mean, but it is kind of Star Warsy. Let's be honest. We come from the world of Jabba the Hutt and other crazy names, so um, I mean, Jude Law's brilliant as an actor, and the fact that we finally get to a peek at his history as uh, a kid who was saved by a Jedi, but in this really dark world that meant that his brief fleeting hope of I don't know, being lifted from the desperate states that he was in was then dashed by his would-be master being killed. So like he never
Hmm.
truly even had the chance to learn anything beyond the quote tricks and nonsense of the surface level, like how to lift a lightsaber, how to lift a rock, maybe like a few of those
Yeah.
lessons, but training never completed and fall into like what he calls in the finale, like his perception is the only thing of value, that what makes the galaxy go round is money, and
Hmm.
there's a kind of hopelessness to that, and I thought that honestly that's kind of a bold direction, because what they could have done is like him have the 180 and come back and save the kids. Like this is what you and I were talking about this. I that's really the direction I thought they were going, but I think it
Well,
was
let me
brilliant.
add something onto that because
Yeah.
I'm doing a video right now for Geeky Stoics on loneliness.
Yeah.
And this was spurred on by a poll that we did on the community page here at Geeky Stoics, and was asking people what they struggle with: lust, anger, loneliness, envy. Loneliness was one of those top ones,
Yeah.
behind lust. And this reminds me, like you said, like the galaxy is run by money and the movement of money. In this loneliness video, I draw on a pole that showed in 2023 in the Wall Street Journal that there have been radical declines in Americans' relationship to the values of patriotism, religion,
Mhm.
family, and community service. And let me just run through this here real quick.
Okay.
People who responded to this poll, they said that the value of religion in their lives um, uh, is strong or not strong, and it used to be 62% in 1998. So 62% of people valued
Um,
religion. That number today is only 39. Community involvement dropped from 47% to 27%. Having children or building a family dropped from 59% to 30%. All of these things are dropping in importance in people's lives. There was only one thing that went up in this poll, and it
yeah.
was the importance of money. Um, that rose from 31% to 43%. And I say in the video that we have raised a generation since the 80s of bounty hunters and mercenaries, people whose
Mhm.
primary concern is money and not building things. And
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic. I'm sympathetic to why I have, a not perfect relationship with money myself either. I'm always always trying to get more in my career, and it never makes me happier. But I'm concerned about that, and I feel like
Mm.
Jod as a character,
Yeah.
he is a model of that. He's the person who's just given up on everything because every institution in Star Wars that gets built gets destroyed. Every institution that gets built gets destroyed in Star Wars by political revolution, dictators, the purge of the Jedi, and Louis, in the comments, you just asked, what do you think is causing this epidemic of loneliness? Um, well, I'll tell you what I think, but the Surgeon General, who is very, very political, his view of this was actually that the drivers of American loneliness are, of course, social media, technology, and individual devices that have allowed people to segment off into their own distinct realities. But he also goes after the American car, the vehicle, the automobile, that basically ever
Mm.
since the mainstreaming of the car and then the suburbs, that basically the spreading out of people and the use of the individual vehicle basically is just added layers on top of people's isolation from one another. And then,
Mm.
of course, the Surgeon General, who is, a very staunch Democrat, says that we need more public transportation, which is like what they've always wanted.
I think that
Um,
would solve it actually. That's
but but for me, the cause is the breakdown of civil society and the social fabric. So membership in clubs, belief in higher power, going to church. Um,
mhm.
when you are part of a church community, you have a support network for all sorts of things: job loss, pregnancy, death of people in your family. You have just people who you see on a weekly basis who know your name, who can babysit your children. It brings you out of that isolation. And boy, is that only getting worse with remote work culture. I mean, remote work is going to add jet fuel and already has to
I was to say,
loneliness in this
it
in this
is.
country. Yeah.
Well, especially because, like, I think hot take, the whole idea of the loneliness epidemic is even compounded not just because of remote work, but because before remote work, we had already sort of transitioned to making work our identities. And so a lot of these social institutions you're talking about are
Hmm.
literally the ones that work started replacing. Like Google, all the tech companies in the late 20 teens, early 20 teens, they were the companies that were catering lunch and bean bags and bringing the gym to work, and like there's daycare at work, and like everything else is provided. Your whole sort of social uh, and life structure was centered at work, and and obviously I think that's borne out to, like, that's not the ideal way to shape a society. And it's interesting, like Star Wars is, I mean, it's this close to the Skeleton Crew is this close to kind of like actually going there with the monotony of the adults, the parents' jobs,
Hmm.
and even with Jod's story in the end, um, his sort of desperation and loneliness, and you kind of learn a little bit about why, because of his experience losing a would-be Jedi Master. But that cynicism, it only kind of bleeds through in hints and places here and there, and like you learn a little bit in the very final episode. That's something that like we should have seen Jod's past. I think that's something that Star Wars Rebels did very effectively with Kanan's character.
Yeah.
You actually see the loss,
The
you see the
director,
horror.
the director did answer a question about this actually,
Mhm.
and the director of Skeleton Crew indicated that he wanted to keep the show from the kids' perspective and not go overboard with going into flashbacks of Jod and what happened.
Yeah.
And I actually support that decision, because one of the facts of this show and what it's about and what I like about it is that these kids live in this sheltered existence, and
Yeah.
Jod is their first exposure to the wreckage, like the human wreckage going on outside at Atten. And they're seeing like an actually really damaged person,
Mhm.
and them seeing that and not getting, you know, we're seeing it from their perspective. And I think we don't need another Order 66 flashback.
That's
I
fair.
think
That's fair.
we've
We've
had
had a lot.
enough. Like, we get it. They shot the
The Order
Jedi.
6
Very sad.
it's basically the same as the Batman origin story is the Order 66 flashback at
How
this
many
point.
times can you watch Bruce's parents get killed?
Yeah.
From a different angle.
Yeah.
But look, let's take this down a similar road here. We've been talking about Jude Law and loneliness and the value of money. What about Judas? Judas
Mm.
and his quest for money and belonging and feeling of isolation. There's this interesting story, because Geeky Stoics, uh, we cover pop culture and philosophy, not just Star Wars. We cover all sorts of different topics, and it was over in People magazine. The actor who plays Judas in The Chosen. This is the Jesus and the disciples story. His name is
Mhm.
Luke Dimian, and he said of Judas that he is misunderstood, and that he, in the
Mm.
role of playing Judas, really began to sympathize with the character. Well, not the character, the historical figure of Judas. And this did like spark a little bit of online discussion, argument, and people kind of throwing stones at one another over whether or not like it's right or wrong for
Mm.
Judas to be depicted in a sympathetic light. I don't
Yeah.
remember. I don't remember how he was depicted in the Passion of the Christ, but I remember him being very snake-like, and
Mhm.
I remember him being a person who, when you saw him, you distrusted him.
Yeah.
Judas in The Chosen is very warm, very likable, a little bit of a hothead, but um, what's your take
Okay.
on this?
Interesting.
Have
Yeah,
you ever
'cause, like
sympathized?
have I have you
Ever
you,
sympathized with
sir,
the guy who
confess.
betrayed Christ?
Now that's a hell of a question, man. Uh, no, it's interesting because, like, I think a lot of the, if you grew up in the church, like I know we did, like you have this perspective of the simpler view, especially as a kid, on the story of Judas. So it's cool to hear about the Chosen's, way that they are portraying the like you say, historical figure. I think, to me, the key, I don't know, the I don't necessarily see this modern reinterpretation. It actually, I think, at least to my, and I'm no biblical scholar, but the context I always understood is that the character, I say characters, but like Judas and Peter, both disciples, both betrayed Jesus, but both had very different stories afterwards. And Judas, the true tragedy of him is he gave in to hopelessness. In fact, he kind of, his own view, his suicide was based on his own loss of hope and like self-hatred, essentially.
Mhm.
Whereas Peter, while he denies Jesus 3 times, denied that he even knew it just to save his own skin, like an act of cowardice, he comes to it, he repents. And I always thought those are sort of like intentionally presented in the Gospels as the different view of those, two men who both are fallen and betray, their Savior as they see it. And I hope The Chosen, because I know you're just getting into it. I have not watched The Chosen, but I hope The Chosen kind of portrays those dueling elements.
I think they will. I mean, I think the thing that is sad about Judas is we have to kind of wrestle with the question of like how doomed he was. We have free will and we have the ability to make free choices, but there's a lot of genuine debate in Christian theological circles about like it was like destiny. Jesus picked him. He was chosen
Hmm. Yeah.
for this purpose to do
How
this.
how Calvinist are you? That's
Yeah,
that's like the
exactly,
question.
exactly. And
Yeah.
it's John 6:64, is one of those first allusions to that betrayal. What is it? I'm going to get it word for word, but there are some of you that believe
Hmm.
not, for Jesus knew from the beginning who they were that believed and who would betray him. And
Mm.
he chose Judas because being crucified and dying for the sins of the world, that's what he was there to do. And that's
Mhm.
that's sad for Judas. I mean, you have to look at Judas, I think, in that light, that he was chosen to kill the Son of God or hand the Son of God over to be killed. And
Yeah.
that's a burden. And I think that person should be depicted in a sympathetic light,
A
right?
human light.
A
Yeah, I
human
think an
light.
understanding of how, um, as humanity, it's not just a predestined thing checklist. It's an ordained plan, and that's the whole part of that part of the gospel story. It's so interesting that, like, we just finished the Christmas holidays, and if you're like us and you grew up in the Bible Belt, there is a often very sanitized view of the resurrection story because it involves the crucifixion,
Mhm.
and we tend to focus most on as a culture, like culturally, the Christmas traditions, and it's fascinating to me just how much I think The Chosen, in a way, has broken past the normal Christian media, circles. Like, I don't know if you're like me, you grew up and watched like Saving the Giants and a few of the other, was it like, I think, Lakewood
Uh-huh.
films or something like that, or like Veggie Tales, or like some version of quote unquote Christian entertainment, or whatever that means. It seems like The Chosen has really sort of evolved beyond that and connected
John,
on a larger scale.
I really wanna know what you think of Jonathan Rumi as Christ. I mean, he has these deep brown eyes and this very soft smile that he employs throughout playing Jesus in The Chosen that is just you just love this person. And
Yeah.
even Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ, Jesus, speaking Aramaic, just very very formal. He's just like a very godlike figure. Like it's like this
Hmm.
is God on earth, and in that sense, very unapproachable. I didn't. He
Yeah.
wasn't lovable, and he didn't seem like someone who loved people genuinely. But
Yeah.
Jonathan Rumi's Christ. I mean, every time he's like helping, somebody through something, he tears in his eyes. Like he's like crying with people, and you go,
Hmm.
that's the Jesus of love. It's a great show. I would highly recommend it. And if you're kind of like
Yeah.
skeptical of trying out Christian entertainment, um, me too. It's taken me years. It's taken me
Yeah.
years to try out this show, and I'm not disappointed at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. I think I'm gonna have to add it to the list. I already did. Well, I'm starting with Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'll work my way up to The Chosen. And we talked about like Geeky Stoics homework. That's like the perfect example of like all the way left and right that we go.
Yeah. 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 You get caught up on Avatar. I'll get caught up on the JC story, and it'll all it'll all be great. Riley and I have different strengths that we both bring to the table in Geeky Stoics. We both are like equal opportunists and equal knowledge on the world of Star Wars. Riley has me beat on Lord of the Rings, and I think you used to have me beat on Narnia, but I might have you beat now.
You're catching up quickly, man. Yeah.
Catching up. Yeah, I'm gonna be
Because,
competitive.
well, especially with this amount of C.S. Lewis scholarship that you've jumped into in the last year that we've been talking C.S. Lewis
That's
stuff.
true. You know the work of C.S. Lewis fiction better than I do, and I know more of the nonfiction catalog of Lewis at this point and his
Yeah,
biography.
which
So
I mean, it's a big Narnia year. Like Greta Gerwig's films coming out. I'm really excited to kind of bring more Narnia content to the channel, just because
not
there's
even
so much.
is it coming out or is it
Is it
like getting produced this year?
produced? That's a good question. Well, I know the ongoing debate back and forth right now is the negotiations for a theatrical release, which I don't know the status of. I really hope they do like an IMAX theater run.
Yeah. But I think, I mean, and yeah, not to like jump in on that, but I think this has been getting talked about for over 10 years.
Yeah.
And there seems to be like it is happening. It's going to be on Netflix, and they're just negotiating a theater release and whether or not it gets one. But they still haven't announced casting. They still haven't shot this
Mhm.
thing. And I think you know as well as I do, if it hasn't
Mm.
been shot, it's not real.
As Star Wars fans, we have been once bitten, twice shy, or I don't know, 7 times bitten, just very shy all the time. I don't know that whatever the Star
Yeah.
Wars equivalent is, because but we'll see. I'm excited. I feel pretty good about this one. Netflix has a lot of money, so to burn. Hopefully, we'll see. We'll
Well,
see.
that's a
The
good
slow
person's
death of the yeah, and the slow death of the Narnia franchise is a real tragedy. Not gonna lie.
Was it slow or was it rapid?
I don't know. I think when you look at, I think Prince Caspian kind of doomed it. It just didn't hit. But also they tried to release it in May, opposite of The Dark Knight. So
Yeah, it was supposed to.
what do you want?
Narnia is thought of as a Christmassy kind of franchise and
Yeah,
story. And yeah, they went for the summer release with Caspian. It was
yeah,
weird. I've seen some analysis of this that basically just argued that even putting Prince Caspian on the poster is like part of what killed the movie, because
sure.
you think about marketing back in those days, we were a little
Hmm.
bit less online than we were today. A lot of
Yep.
marketing. It was really, really important that promotional materials and on-site stuff at the movie theaters was right. And nobody knew who
Hmm.
this guy was, Prince Caspian or the actor, and they wanted to see the
Yep.
kids on the poster, and the kids weren't on the poster.
Yeah.
And it just nobody knew what it was, and it failed. But Greta Gerwig's starting with The Magician's Nephew.
Which is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Like that's a tough story to adapt. I think it's enough. It's like the most science fictiony of the Narnia stories, I think, and in that way, it's going to be a challenge to adapt.
Can I give you a trivia question? Narnia trivia question?
Hit me.
Let's test your knowledge.
Oh no.
Why what is the origin of the wardrobe, and why is there a portal into Narnia?
It is a reference to the magician's nephew. Um, the wardrobe is built from a tree from the
Yes.
magician's nephew,
Yes.
which is from the beginning and the creation of Narnia. But I can't
Yeah.
remember the details beyond that.
I mean, that's it. You got it. Yeah, Aslan and the magician's nephew, the boy named Diggory? No. Yeah,
Diggory.
Diggory.
Yep,
Diggory gets an apple and he takes it back to heal his
that's
mother
right.
who's dying, and he plants the apple core, which the apple came from Narnia, in his backyard. He buries it because
Mm,
Aslan asked him to bury that apple core and make sure that nobody else got to it. And it grew a tree, a Narnian tree that, had
mm,
that spark of the divine. And it does say in the very last page of the book, very quickly, that the tree ends up getting blown over by a storm, and Diggory, who becomes a professor, has the tree cut down and turned into a wardrobe. And so
mhm.
the professor from Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe is Diggory,
Yeah, yeah.
presumably. Yeah.
Brilliantly, yes, and brilliantly played by Jim Broadbent, who is also one of the professors in Harry Potter. There's a little Harry Potter connection. Yeah, dude, we're gonna nerd out on some Narnia stuff this year. It's gonna be a good time. I can't wait.
I am excited.
Well, hey man, I really for a first live stream, I think considering we are thousands of miles apart, and the wonder of technology has allowed this to somehow function, which I was very skeptical of. I'm going to call this a win. Any parting shots or final thoughts that you wanted to partake as we continue to evolve this this format of Geeky Stoics?
No, just like thank you everybody for joining in what we're doing here. Live better mythically. We're all about looking to great stories that people love, that bring their lives meaning, and trying to then go a layer deeper and be like, all right, why do you love this story? And where are its origins in the search for meaning in the world? So we take these stories super seriously, even the ones
Yep.
that aren't always super popular. And we're just so glad that you're here. We've grown from 1,200 subscribers around Halloween to just under 10,000
It's crazy.
in just like 2 or 3 months. It's been absolutely bonkers, and we're just so blessed and excited with what's going on right now.
Yeah, we've got some super exciting plans this year. Some conventions we're going to be at, some meetups we're going to do, and really just like even this show here, doing it live and actually building a community where we can have the space to have deeper, longer form conversations around some of the stuff. I'm really excited for it, man. So without further, I won't delay it anymore. If you are watching this still or watching the replay, for those of you guys live or watching the replay, definitely turn on the notification bell. I know that's all the YouTubers say that, but I'm very excited to build a regular Thursday morning Eastern time live show. So thanks for swinging by, and until next time, may the force be with you.
This is the way.
Nice. Yeah, I like it. I like it, man. We'll see you guys.